two, one. Oh, and wow. Okay, I think we are live. Good evening, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your evening so far. Enjoying everything that we've kind of been preparing in advance of Hack the North, and hope everyone's super excited for the event. It's less than a week away, so hopefully everyone's excited. It's going to be an awesome weekend at the University of Waterloo. As part of one of the ways we try to prepare hackers before the event begins is actually through our many different Gear Up newsletters. And over the past week, I should have received four parts of a newsletter where you should have been basically just taught all about different things, in the AI space, cloud, hardware, and even how to build a full stack software app. Today, what we're doing is we have our panel called How to Hackathon. It's going to be a hacker AMA with some of the people who have gone to some of the most hackathons the world has possibly ever seen. And they've accumulated a large wealth of knowledge on, how exactly to make the most of your hackathon experience. So what we'll do now is we'll kind of, learn from them. We'll get a few tips and we'll learn the most about how next weekend at Hack North you can make the most of your time not just through hacking and through projects, but also about some of the other things that happen at hackathons, such as the different activities. To start off, we could just go in a round circle, and we can just have everybody introduce themselves, their hackathon experience, their favorite hackathon memory, and why you love hackathons. Bill, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So, hey guys, my name is Bill. I've done over 50 hackathons and I've won almost or exactly 28. I really like doing hackathons mostly because I really like meeting new people. So every hackathon, I'll try to find a new team and then basically just work with them on a new project. And like that sort of rapid product development is what really interests me. And my favorite hackathon memory is actually with Rian and William here at the California AI Hackathon, where we spent like 4 hours karaokeing in one of the workshop rooms. Honestly, best memory. So definitely
Nice,
want
that's
to do that again.
awesome to hear.
Agreed.
Karaoke is definitely something we'll be talking about. Rian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, my name is Rian Corsino. I've done 7 hackathons and won 4 of them consecutively. I love hackathons as like kind of start of experience and building like kind of overnight projects with just 4 crazy other people in a room. It's really awesome. And it's also helped me like learn a lot of my full stack experience. 90% of what I know has been just learned from just straight Googling and chat GPT everything overnight. So a lot of technical experience. And in terms of my favorite hackathon memory, I think it's been a while, but it's still my very first hackathon because I went to my very first hackathon with basically no expectations. I was a complete beginner, didn't know anyone. And so seeing, my project up on the winning screen for the first time, I was like, wait, this is a mistake, right? You guys are trolling, right? But so it was pretty incredible to see my first win ever.
Nice. Audrey, what about you?
Yeah, Audrey. I've gone to 25 hackathons, or 26, and I've won 19 of them. I love hackathons because of the free food and the free memes. My favorite hackathon memory, ooh, it's simultaneously my favorite and also not my favorite. It's when I spilled Red Bull over my computer. At Citrus Hacks with Bill. It was not a good memory because my computer was very sticky, and it was a good memory because that was like the hackathon where I first kind of learned the workflow of like how to really push yourself in a hackathon and like believe in finishing your project. So that helped me like carry through for the rest of the hackathon. So yeah, shout out to Bill.
William.
Hey everyone, my name is William. I have gone to over 100 hackathons. I've won 55 so far. I love doing karaoke at hackathons. My favorite hackathon memory, this was also at Cal Hacks at UC Berkeley this summer, singing Viva La Vida in front of 1,000 hackers, sponsors, and organizers on the main stage at Cal Hacks. That was unreal.
Nice, awesome. And now that we've gotten to know all of our panelists, just to introduce myself as well. My name is Ian. I'm a logistics organizer this year on the Hack the North team, and I will be your MC for the evening. Just some ground rules. We do have the live chat going, so anytime you have a question that you'd like to ask one of our panelists, please just toss it in there, and then at the very end of our panel, we'll actually go through and we'll go in through all the questions and we'll actually have our panelists answer them. So if there's something you're curious about how to make the most of your hackathon experience, these 4 people right here are probably some of the best people to ask. So toss your questions in the chat. Don't be afraid. And we'll get started with one of the first questions that we have here. The hackathons themselves, they all start with the idea, right? You have ideas that have been, commonly shown in the past, and you can definitely find a lot of ideas online. But a lot of the ideas that you end up seeing on the stage at the end of the day are very out of the box. And some people argue that it starts all with the idea. So for the four panelists right here, how do you come up with, that winning idea, those cool projects that are so outside of the box? Would anyone like to start us off? Audrey, go for it.
Yeah, I think coming up with the idea, you have to like look at what you yourself would actually use. Like I think from the consumer perspective, um I think that like helps a lot of people just start formulating ideas. It's just like examining your own life or like your loved ones' lives and just seeing like what can be improved.
Nice. Anyone else like to chime in?
Yeah, so recently at the Berkeley Hackathon, right, our team won first place, which is the $50,000 prize. And a lot of people asked us, like, hey, how did you get this idea? It's like so unique, so niche. Like, how did you find it? And for us, or for me at least, I get most of my ideas just from daily life. So I have like a notes. So on my iPhone, there's a notes app. I have like a page specifically dedicated to ideas. And like, on my daily life, I'll be going out, talking to people, talking to like mentors, talking to all these random people. And every time they mention something that they have an issue with in their life, in this case, it was long response times for 911 calls. I would just jot this down in my notes app. And then during our brainstorming sessions for hackathons, the first thing I do is I just go through this list and I'd be like, hey, what can we solve for this hackathon? And what kind of tech can we use to solve this problem? And once we have this problem, that's where the idea comes in. We take this problem we have and we try to make an idea that fits this problem directly and like solves it. So for example, for Berkeley Hackathon, the problem was long response times for 911 calls. So our idea was, okay, if real humans don't have enough time to answer calls, we're going to use AI to answer calls. And that was our core idea, and we kind of expanded from there. So the main point I'm trying to make is that you want to have a solid problem at first, and your idea comes from that problem.
Definitely a good way to look at it. Look at the consumers. All right, go for it. You can just unmute yourself. So we don't need to raise our hands.
Oh, sure. Okay. So I want to say the first several hackathons, I also spent some like the first just several hours, or not several, like maybe about 2 or 3 hours, just thinking about my own problems and my teammates' problems, seeing how some of us come from very similar backgrounds. And then secondarily, I also do a lot of like research in terms of like news and just daily things. So whenever, there's different tracks like sustainability, education, entertainment, whatever, I usually like to just look up like news on those kinds of topics to begin with because those are very relevant and very prevalent like on the daily. So it's more likely for judges to realize like, oh, this is a very common issue. So the first few hours are just spent doing that. Always start with the why. Do not start with the technology first. Always start with the problem statement.
Definitely. And William, you got an opinion on this one?
Yeah, just a small thing. I completely agree with everything that Bill, Audrey, and Rian said. It's like you have to be focused on the problem. One mistake I see a lot of people making is they're trying to think of the most impressive idea with the most complicated tech stack that might impress judges. And the issue with this is that what ends up happening is they choose like these just not really engaging ideas that don't really solve any problems, and the judges aren't really impressed by it because at the end of the day you're making like vaporware. So you really have to find something that you yourself are passionate about or you care deeply about, and with that you're able to understand the problem and as a result craft this really intricate solution that you might use and other users who are in the same shoes as you might use. So be problem focused rather than solution focused.
Yeah, I definitely think that just to round out that answer, it definitely does make sense. A lot of people typically go into a hackathon being like, hey, let me build X, Y, Z thing. But if you instead going with the mindset of, hey, let me build a solution to X, Y, Z problem, you kind of figure out, hey, how can I build something that actually solves a problem, and not just something you thought of at the top of your mind. So it's really good to hear, and we'll kind of go into the next kind of phase of building a project. So you have that winning idea, your team has kind of brainstormed it for a few hours. So now you have a solid idea of what you're building. Now we kind of have to go to the next stage, which is actually implementing that crazy idea, regardless of how many of the features that you actually end up making in the 24 or the 36 hours. So just a question for all of you is, what is your favorite stack when building hackathon projects, and what are some of the APIs that you like to use? Anyone like to start us off?
I can go first. Mine is pretty basic compared to everyone else's here, and I'm pretty static. I've used the same one for a couple hackathons. For the front end, I've alternated between like Next.js and React.js. Those are very standard ones. And then for design, I'll use Bootstrap and MUI or a Material UI. That one's super useful. I love using that one. For backend, I think Python Flask is just about the easiest one to get down, especially for like making localhost servers. And then for dev tools or server basing, Vercel and Clerk. Vercel is great for launching a server really quick, really fast. The first time I launched an app on our website in Vercel, I'm pretty sure I didn't even read the documentation. I was just trying stuff out and somehow launched it, got it to work. So it's really nice and easy to use. Auth, I use Clerk, and actually Bill taught me that one. I got Clerk from Bill, super useful. And I think for database is Firebase. It's just like the easiest one to learn for me. So I'm very standard.
Nice, some pretty useful tools. Anyone got some other opinions?
Yeah, I agree with Rian. Like yeah, next or React. Some APIs I like using are like all the Google APIs. And then like the OpenAI API too. I think that's like one of the most commonly used. Like you see all the wrappers. But yeah, Bill taught me Fast API. And then I agree with Vercel. Vercel is good for hosting. And then recently, the last project, we actually use Supabase for the database.
Nice, so we have Supabase, Firebase, all right. So definitely some contending tools here, but also some similarity with React and Next. Bill and William, what do you think?
You wanna go, Bill, or should I go first?
You can go first. You can go first.
Okay, yeah, I was just gonna talk more about like VR development because I think Audrey and Rian mostly covered web. Oh yeah, another API. I like Google's API as well, like Gemini. They have free. Uh, like their free limit is basically 15 requests per minute. So as long as you don't exceed that, like you get to use their API for free, which is pretty nice. But I've been doing VR development recently, so that has been like Unity, as well as scripts and logic in C sharp. So that has been a lot of fun. And uh yeah, there's a bunch of like APIs you can play with, like Anthropic and OpenAI. They're both like pretty good. Yeah, just like see where you get the credits for those APIs and then just use up the credits. That's what I would do.
Definitely some different tools you're using there for VR. Definitely out of the more so traditional tech stack. Bill, what
Oh
about you?
yeah,
What do you
another
like to do?
thing.
Oh, go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna say like sometimes you don't have all the functionalities in C sharp, so you have to create like a local Python server. I personally use Express deployed on render. Uh, so that's like another way for more functionality for VR.
Nice. Yeah, awesome to hear how to make the most of a VR project. Bill, what do you like to use?
So everybody here has already talked about like your tech stack, but I want to talk about something like slightly different, which is your dev stack. In other words, what you use to actually develop your tech stack. So for me, or for what I believe is that hackathons, you need to be very, very time efficient. You can't be like Googling everything. You can't be using Stack Overflow. I mean, you can, but like it'll be less efficient. So the dev stack that I use, I can pretty much just list them out here. Number one for front end is Vercel's V0 tool. Though that tool lets you pretty much like you don't have to code out your front end yourself. If you have an idea for your front end, all you have to do is use natural language, chat with V0, and get your front end, right? This saves you a ton of time in refining your front end because V0 does it for you, and all you need to do is provide the original like wireframe, right? Number two is my code editor. A lot of people use VS Code and maybe GitHub Copilot, but like for me, those are not enough. It's a good help, but it's not like fast enough for me. So I use what's called Cursor. Cursor is a VS Code fork that basically runs RAG on your code base. So instead of just generating code for you, whatever, helping you write functions, it knows your entire code base and it's able to like use that as context for your code, which makes developing like basic functions, basic helper functions like lightning fast. You pretty much do it instantly in like a couple seconds when you would maybe take 15 minutes to 30 minutes, to write it out yourself. And like this kind of just compounds on itself because every 30 minutes you save is like 30 minutes you can use on anything else. And then for backend, I love using Postman. So a lot of people who develop backend have a lot of trouble debugging and like, why is my backend failing? Why is like this fail? Like they use curl requests, but curl requests are hard to understand for beginners. And Postman gives you like a really, really nice graphics or GUI for debugging your backend routes, whether it's WebSockets, whether it's GraphQL, whether it's something simple like REST APIs. And then finally, I guess another web tool that's really useful that a lot of people don't know is called Claude Artifacts. And Claude is like sort of ChatGPT, but better in that it can pretty much like do like a little window on the side that shows you the results of your code without you having to run it yourself. So it's like V0, you can run iterations over and over again until you get something that you really like. And that's really how like you become really, or how I become really time efficient at hackathons and basically get a lot of stuff done that people are like, hey, how did you do all of this stuff in 24 hours? Right? It's not just like coding, it's more like maximizing the efficiency of your coding.
Yeah, and also in a way, it's now you have to keep in mind that you have to understand the system, how the whole system works, right? It's not just about putting the words on the paper; it's understanding how does the bigger picture fit in. And actually, I'll actually upload that on Postman because I remember at one of my hackathons, I think this was like last summer, at a hackathon called Ignition Hacks. I remember that we were building out like an API, and we are like, oh, like why aren't there requests going through? And we actually ended up using Postman to debug it. It was probably one of the greatest tools I've ever seen. Lots of support online. So definitely uploading the common to use Postman. So, okay, now we've kind of gone through the process of how you come up with the idea. We've gone through the process of how you build out your project. The final thing that kind of comes out is the judges. So you have to, at the end of the day, at most hackathons, present your project to the judges. And after hacking all night long, and now you finally have a demo working, that's kind of the next step. So what tips do you have for absolutely killing that pitch? All right, Audrey, go for it.
I think it's understanding who you're presenting to, like really connecting with them and checking to see if they're really following what you're saying. Because I guess like as engineers, maybe you like start to ramble and nerd out about your project. But like go from like a human perspective, I think, and just like actually like look them in the eyes, like see if they're like following up on what you're talking about. And I think talk about the impact first, um, rather than like rather than just the tech. I think it's easy to get excited about what you implemented, but like really what is your project? Like what is it? And it depends like look at what judge is in front of you and try and adjust your pitch to what kind of person they are. Like there could be a researcher in front of you that prefers more tech. There could be like a judge that's more on the business side and then start talking about like the revenue. So yeah, that's what I think.
Definitely some awesome advice. Who's next?
I'll go. So I think as for my first hackathon, as I've mentioned, and for my first few hackathons, I'm no huge hackathon expert, but the one thing that I felt like I had a pretty good strong suit in was presenting and storytelling. I know we hear that word a lot, but what exactly is storytelling mean? What's the point of it? Um, Psychologically, we are triggered more by emotions before logic first. So it kind of has something to do with tech stack. The fact that you choose a problem statement first before your tech stack. So likewise with your pitch, you don't just want to say like, oh, I built this really cool thing and it just happens to do this. I always say I use this structure called the why, how, what structure. Where instead of just starting, the tech stack is the very last thing that I talk about. The first thing I talk about is the problem statement and what kind of problem I'm trying to solve. And so I saw this a lot on my very first hackathon, where I actually saw people who had made objectively more complex products than I did. Like they were way more complex, and they used like someone built a physics engine in 24 hours. I don't even know how. But the problem, and they probably could have beat my project. The problem was that when they presented, it was like, oh yeah, I built this engine it's pretty cool. It can do these things and whatever. So it seemed like a project that you would have wanted, but not one that you need. And so what I built was a very basic Google Maps overlay of like water treatment facilities all across California. But I didn't pitch it like that. I didn't say, "Hey, I built this map, and you can see water treatment and whether it's drinkable or not." I said, "How often do you go to the beach with your family? Do you know that there are contaminants in the water? Did you know that there are contaminants all across California, actually? Well, this app will show you all those locations by the simple click of a button." So starting off with a story and an anecdote will always trigger human emotions, like just like that. And that's why you always start with I think it's ethos or pathos, it's one of those. But starting with a story, an anecdote. Yeah.
Nice. I think definitely if I saw your project right now, the water treatment facilities, I definitely would have been convinced. So yeah, definitely will be using that structure in my next hackathon pitch. I definitely think that's some awesome advice. William and Bill, what do you think?
I think I'll frame mine is very similar to Rian's. I don't really pitch at hackathons because I have a dedicated pitcher to pitch, but I've noticed like a recurring trend across all my hackathons, and that is the value proposition and the framing. So it's hard to explain, but I can give like one of my favorite like short stories that pretty much like explains this whole concept. So imagine you were going for like a haircut, right? And then the barber says, "Okay, your haircut is $600." And then the person like is like, "Oh my God, it's so just expensive haircut. Why would I ever pay this price, right?" So the barber, instead of trying to convince them to pay $600, will be like, "Hey, what are you getting this haircut for?" And then the person might say, "Hey, I might be getting this haircut for like a professional interview." Okay, and then the barber, instead of like talking about the hair, instead of like um, trying to convince him to get the haircut for the interview, he'll say something like, "Okay, so let's say you get the job. How much is the job worth? And let's say you don't get the haircut and you don't get a job." So he's pretty much framing like the haircut, not in terms of the haircut itself, but instead of the value it could bring to the person in the future. Like, okay, if you get the job, then it might be worth it to spend $600 for this haircut. And it's very similar to Rian's story there, where it's like you have like a value prop, and you don't talk about the product, but you talk about what value it brings to your target audience.
Nice. Definitely some good advice, and definitely hitting some of the same points of advice other people have said. But I definitely appreciate your unique perspective on that. That was awesome. William, you want to kind of round us off on this question here?
Yeah, I think Audrey, Rihanna, and Bill, they covered like most of it. I have like three very small things. First of all, you need energy. One thing I noticed is that on the last day when you're pitching, everybody's dead. Okay. They either like, pulled all-nighters or got like maybe 3 hours of sleep. So when they're pitching to judges, they're like very, very monotone. They're quite boring. And these judges, they have to go through like 30 projects. So a very easy way to stand out is you need to bring the energy. Like when you go up to the judges, like talk to them with a lot of enthusiasm. Even if you have to fake it, it's fine. It's like for 5 minutes. If you do that, you're definitely gonna stand out and they're gonna remember you. Two, show, don't tell. Like you have to make your pitch as interactive as possible. At least that's what I think. So instead of, going through like a PowerPoint, show them the thing you made, let them play with it. And I think having that interaction will really help your project stand out because when they're able to play with it and actually interact with it, they're going to remember it a lot more. And lastly, I think it's very important to have visuals. So your slide deck shouldn't be everything about your pitch, but I found it's really helpful when you have like, numbers up on the slides or like your tech stack up on the slides. They're just some things that images can explain way better than words can. So yeah, those three. Bring energy, make it as interactive as possible, and also have great visuals.
Nice. Definitely agree on the visuals. I definitely think that, as judges too, you see all the things that hackers build, but you also, you want to see work. You want to see, they started, they hacked it together, and, it's working. It's like as if you were a user, you'd be able to use that product in the exact same way. So definitely some awesome advice, and definitely a great way to round off the question before we move to our next question, which will be more hackathon experience focused. But definitely a big thing, judges, they love to see things that are working, and if you can show them that, I definitely think they'll be very impressed. Our next question kind of strays away from more so hackathons and building the project, but it goes towards some of the other aspects. So a lot of you previously before mentioned karaoke. And at the end of the day, hackathons are more than just your project. It's all about the fun activities you attend, stuff like the workshops you learn from, and the people that you meet along the way. So, what should hackers do, other than make a cool project to make the most of their experience at any hackathon, but most notably next weekend at Hackathon? Other than, of course, karaoke, but we can go around and share favorite karaoke memories too if we'd like.
So like you said, besides the karaoke, I mean, of course, the karaoke feels like the main event sometimes. You always have to do karaoke. Like it's non-negotiable. But besides that, I think I and Bill and Andre and William, we've all done like just a bunch of random stuff at times. I remember we would, just going out for lunch, going out for dinner, even going for a walk around the campus. I've done that plenty of times to clear out my head because sitting down for like 10 hours straight will mess with your brain at some point. It's just not a good idea to sustain that long. So going for a simple walk. I've played basketball halfway through the hackathon. I'm pretty sure I played Spider-Man 2 on someone's PS5 at some point. I don't remember exactly when it was. But really small tasks. Nothing doesn't have to be anything huge. Even just conversing with someone else, it helps a lot. But I did want to argue that, as much as karaoke and all those things are fun, they're not just fun. They're also like necessary. You really cannot sit indoors for 24 hours straight on the computer. That's insane. Not the best for your health. So touch grass, go outside.
Definitely some good advice, and definitely know the people that you meet doing these, fun little side quests along the way. I mean, that's also part of the hackathon, meeting new people. So definitely, even though you were playing Spider-Man on someone's PS5, it definitely must have been quite the experience meeting them too. Well, what else does everyone else like to do at hackathons?
Sorry, I just want to add on like one more thing, but another really funny story is that we literally celebrated someone's birthday at Venus Hacks like overnight. So that's another huge thing.
Nice. Yes.
So
If your birthday is next weekend, definitely let us know so we can celebrate it. What else do all of you like to do at hackathons? Yeah, Andre, go for it.
I mean, wait, before like talking about the fun things, I was about to say like it's good to pull up to the workshops because like the sponsors might be there, and the people who can help you like with the sponsor tools if you're going for like a sponsor track. So like pull up to the workshop and like meet the people who can help you with your project in person. Otherwise, yeah, I love karaoke. Freaking William dragged me to karaoke for the first time at a hackathon, and I was like, this is a thing. Like people karaoke at hackathons. Because before I would actually be one of those people that was not a grass toucher, and I would be like locked in on a project. But yeah, I think I agree with Rian. Karaoke is like non-negotiable.
Yeah, I definitely think for me too, William was the first person ever dragged me to karaoke at a hackathon. I definitely say I'm a changed person after that. So everything set aside, definitely make time to go to karaoke at hackathons. William, there have been so many things said about, you dragging people to activities. What kind of activities do you like to drag people to?
Definitely karaoke is number one. I just love karaoke. I think it's a great way to like bond with people. That I think that's like another big thing. Uh like hackathons are this such a special opportunity where you get to interact with all of these like super smart, passionate, like-minded individuals, and you want to find ways to like organically connect with them, and karaoke is a great way. I would also just suggest, going to all of the events if possible. So what I mean by this is like just show up, go to the workshops, go to the like activities, go to the fun events, and just show up and see if you like it. If you don't like it, you can always leave, but maybe you like it and great, you can stay and like not just learn stuff, but also like get to interact with these people who might be like great friends down the line, and you can learn a lot from them as well. Just great connections overall. Uh, some other stuff, like some other tips. Some people might disagree with me on this, but I think sleep is really, really important. Like especially getting sleep at hackathons. One thing I noticed is that uh, people like to pull all nighters to get more time to work on their projects. But if they invested that time into sleep, they might be able to work more effectively, and it would be a lot less painful to pitch and stuff if they got the sleep they needed so that their brain can function properly. So that's like another big one. I personally try to get as much sleep as possible for hackathons, and also like try out all the food. Like the food is free, And most hackathons I've gone to, okay, especially Hack the North, they have like amazing food, uh, like just such variety that you can try out in the weekend. So definitely take advantage of that. And lastly, talk to the sponsors. I got my data annotation role at Cohere through hackathons. And like it's such a special opportunity where you get to talk to people from these like top companies. You know, Hack North has all these amazing sponsors coming. And you normally won't get this chance to just talk to like employees working at this company. Like if you try to go up to their office, like their security is not gonna let you in. So take advantage of that, and you never know what you might get out of it.
Yeah, definitely agree on the food part. Food is great, and also talking to the companies definitely will be a lot of wonderful sponsors, all of which can be found on our website. That definitely would love to talk to hackers. And it's interesting that you mentioned the sleep part. I definitely know there is somewhere a floating around out there. But at U of T Hacks, William, when we stayed up all night just to finish that one project at U of T Hacks last year, and yeah, sleep is important because we may have not slept for 24 like 30 plus hours just to finish that project, but I think up until 2 minutes before we were supposed to pitch right there in like the big room in the big auditorium, and it was a science first style judging, so the judges were coming around. We were sound asleep on the table, all five of us. Oh, no, all four of us. So it definitely get your sleep. Definitely make the difference in the pitch. Bill, what do you think? What is the most important thing to do at a hackathon other than
Yeah, I actually like really encourage people not to hack for the entire like 24, 36 hours. Simply just because based on previous personal experience, hacking all the time is very, very easy to burn out. So you might do two hackathons and you never want to do hackathons again. So my advice or what I like to do is, me personally, I like driving, I like traveling. So what I do with my team is we go to like all sorts of different locations. We might start off at a venue or for a couple hours. Then we move to like a boba shop. And then we sit at the boba shop and work for another couple hours. Then we might get food. So we drive to another place, we get food, we talk about like our project during food. And what we do is we just keep moving locations like over and over again, like desserts or maybe second round of boba. When we go into a hotel to work, right? And then every time we move, it's like we get sort of a new wave of motivation, a new wave of ideas. And that's what really like keeps us motivated. Because if you sit at one table at one hackathon, you grind for 12 hours, it's very, very easy to get distracted, to lose motivation, to just like, lose your mental. And like, I feel like mental is a very big part of hackathons. And that's like, and by moving around, that's my way of like raising mental, raising like basically your attitude, keeping your attitude consistent. I think that's a very
that?
important part of hackathons.
Yeah, especially the boba. I think there's three or four boba shops just a plaza away, a 2 minutes walk away from the Waterloo Engineering buildings where the hackathon will be taking place. And definitely lots of boba and definitely lots of moving around. I think especially that's why Hack North we love to have like the building is huge, right? You have like 6 or 7 different floors to hack on, so you're definitely bound to find a space that works for you. But also all the different workshops and activities, right? Especially if you're like trying to form an idea or trying to, as Audrey mentioned before, learn from the sponsor workshops. That's all they're available starting exactly when hacking begins. So you'll definitely have lots of opportunities to move around, live somewhere, and get exactly what you're looking for. I think at this moment, we're going to move over to some of the questions we have in the chat. We also did have some questions sent in to us ahead of time, but we will prioritize the questions that are in the live chat. So if at any point you have any questions about what some of the panelists have said, or some questions you have just in general on how to make the most of your hackathon experience, then feel free to send them in the chat and we will start off with them and definitely go through them in the order that they come in. So starting off with the very first one. The question was, how long should brainstorming take for a project? And how do you know if it's feasible for a demo? Does anyone want to start us off with this one? Talk about brainstorming and, figuring out when it's ready for a demo.
So I'll go first for this one. I think so. I like to brainstorm ideas ahead of time. I think, as I mentioned before, I used to spend a few hours during the actual hackathon coming with ideas. Now I like to do like maybe a week or two ahead of time. And kind of for the same reasons that Bill had mentioned, where like I'll just get ideas spontaneously and I have like it on like a Google Doc, I'll have my ideas written down and I have it on my phone as well. So if I'm out traveling somewhere and I have ideas, I'll write them down. and then having meetings with teammates ahead of time so we can discuss like prospective ideas. It's also important to mention, like, I don't start on the idea, like I don't start coding. Obviously, we don't want to do that. But ideating way before and ahead of time. No, what was the second half of the question?
It's like when you know that it's actually feasible for them.
Right. So I think we kind of just take a group vote, to be honest. So like when we have all of our ideas down, we'll kind of do votes and see like which project eventually wins the overall democratic vote. And then features as well. And we'll kind of test this out by like doing sort of a flow chart or like a workflow kind of thing, where in user experience terms, we will go step by step through our app and see if as a human we like our own app. It's kind of like dog food. I know a lot of companies use that term. If we would eat our own dog food and like use our own app, if it benefits us, if we'll see if it's too confusing to use, if the UI is friendly, if it's like pretty easy to get right up, like 15 or 5 minutes into using it. Because if it takes any longer than that, we don't like our own app, or we get confused, then obviously it's probably not good for the demo. So making sure it's very user friendly, having that user experience, and liking your own app pretty much.
Definitely. Like if you don't like what you build, right, then it's never gonna make it to some point to be loving what you're doing. Good advice both for hackathons and your future career. So definitely hitting a lot of birds with that one stone there. Anyone else have an opinion, or we could also move on to the next question.
One thing to note is that if you don't know how feasible something is, reach out to a mentor. These people have like so much experience. Like if you just describe your idea to them, most likely they can tell you, oh, like you can build this in 6 hours, you can build this in 12 hours, or like I don't think you can build it, maybe tone down the scope. And yeah, it never hurts to just discuss your ideas with other people, get their opinions, because yeah, like mentors are very, very experienced and they can save you hours and hours of headache if you just get their wisdom and insights ahead of time.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the great part about mentors, especially as people who usually have industry experience. They're able to tell you like, hey, you have this great idea. But if you dream up this thing that is so huge, it would take, professionals weeks or even months to come to life. And they're like, hey, that part of the idea is awesome. Here's like some advice on what you could potentially do. That's definitely some great advice there, like picking out exactly the awesome parts of your idea, cutting out all the fluff and focusing on the part that makes it awesome. Definitely some great advice and lots of mentors at Hack the North. You'll be able to visit them on the mentor van, the ground floor of V7. So definitely a lot of people there to help you throughout your hack. All right, anyone going once, going twice for anyone else that would like to provide some tips on, just brainstorming and when you Bill, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to add something. Apart from brainstorming your project, I do this ahead of time as well. But another thing you should also keep focus on, I guess, is the correct word. Is your team like cohesion? Like how well can you work together as a team? For me, when I did like teams with people at like that I've never met before, we try to do like team building activities. Like for example, playing a game on Discord, or like just doing stuff together. Pretty much, it helps you understand like your teammates' personalities. Like you can talk better. You understand like for example, if you don't do these types of activities in the beginning, like it might feel awkward to ask your teammate, hey, can you do this feature for me? Right? It feels like a request. But like if you're getting already friends ahead of time, these team building activities, it's very easy to like make requests of teammates, and that really helps like get things like flowing faster. If that makes sense. But yeah, it's very important to like know how to communicate with your team, know how to like work together effectively, and just basically work as a team.
Definitely. I mean, you'll be spending the next 24 to 36 hours with these people. So, if you don't break that ice, if you don't really get to know them, then it might be quite a long while. Yeah. Any last words? Of course, Audrey.
Yeah, I just thought of something for technical feasibility. Like, I guess you like research on documentation and just see like how possible it is based on like articles or like other similar projects.
Yeah, that definitely some great advice, and yeah, definitely important to see, hey, can I build this out in 36 hours, and maybe if not, what component of this can I really make awesome over the hackathon? And I like how we're really talking about teams and really getting to know your team, because it kind of flows into the next question that we've received, and it also has to do with team formation. So, what are the pros and cons of coming in with or without a team? So, should you basically just come to the hackathon with the team already formed, or are there some different pros and cons to meeting the people there? And I think this question was already touched upon a little in our introductions, and just when we're talking about meeting people, but would definitely love to hear what everyone has to say.
So yeah, I do both. There's some hackathons where I go in with a team formed like maybe half a year in advance, and there's some hackathons where I will like fly from, for example, LA to Georgia Tech and literally form a team at the hackathon. And I do this for two or each one I do like for a reason. So number one, for like already have a team, that's mainly to win, right? To win a hackathon, usually you need to like have like a really impressive product, a really polished product, a good pitch, stuff like that. And having a team that you already know and can work with very well is like crucial to that. Like you can build something really fast. You're able to communicate very well. You already like know like how to like build something that you've built in the past. Um, and then number two, for building for like, finding a team at the venue, that's mostly to learn. Where I'm not really there to win. I'm mostly there to learn, and that's like a different mindset. So you're not like really stressed out. You're not really like pushing your teammates. You're mostly there to just have fun, build something cool and interesting, and like prepare for a future hackathon. That's like the reason or differences between having a team and finding a team at the venue.
Yeah, definitely seems like both are great options. And yeah, definitely pros and cons to each. What does everyone else think?
So yeah, I agree with Bill. Bill's strategy is pretty interesting or pretty cool. Now I know a lot of people in the chat might be beginners, so that having a team like half a year in advance is a pretty big expectation. So let's say you are really just going there, you have no one, you don't know anyone for the first time. The way that I usually assign team roles is very simple and very straightforward. It's kind of just what everyone is good at, and not just in terms of technology, but also like kind of at heart what parts they want to work on. So if they like drawing or designing, then obviously they'll probably be best for UI. If they've done a couple of, if they've done a bit of backend, let's say C++, Java, whatever, then have them do the backend there as well. And I've also had times where I've like my first couple hackathons, I have had teammates who literally don't know any technical skills whatsoever. Believe it or not, there are roles for them too. If they simply do the Figma design, that's really helpful because I can't design. I sure as hell can. So if I had someone who didn't have any technical skills, then having a UI to work with is great. And research. Research is a really big thing. I think that one might be underrated even. I feel like a lot of people will just assume what problems are and assume like how they want to be solved. But you'll find like again through news articles, having someone do the research for you, look up what problems are, look up data sets, look up all those things. So assigning people a role based on their strong suits really matters, assuming that again they're beginners and you guys don't really know what you're doing. So that stuff.
I definitely think there's a lot of sometimes where you have to like choose the different roles. Like, what are you like? Front end, back end. I definitely don't think we see researcher as much as we should be. So actually, that's a really interesting take that I'm really glad we got today. Because yeah,
Yeah.
definitely if you can't finding a problem is literally half of the problem. After that, all that's left to do is build it, right?
Right, yeah. And again, I really want to stress like for my first hackathon, my entire team literally I was the only one who could code. Everyone else had some experience doing some drawing, but no coding, no front end, nothing. So that's at the point where as much as anyone at face value, you could say, okay, you guys are useless. I don't even team up at that point, but that's not true. Again, I assigned one person to like go look up Excel sheets for data sets. I assigned someone to like look up news sources in Fullerton or whatever, and then for design. So you'd be surprised. There's a lot of roles that to be filled that are not necessarily technical.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think no matter what your background is, and it's definitely a common misconception, but you can definitely still make the most of your hackathon experience. It definitely is a lot other than time and coding that goes into making a hackathon project good. So yeah, thank you for that. Audrey, I think you had some words you wanted to say.
Yeah, going with Ryan's response, there might be like a lot of hackers or beginner hackers going to hack the North for the first time, like scared of like, what, how do I like? I saw one question in the YouTube chat that was like, I only know Python. Like, how do I prepare for this hackathon? What do I need to know? People wonder like what tech stack they need to know, but I think and also people are like afraid that they won't contribute to their team. But I think one really powerful thing is just like really putting your best foot forward and like doing the best you can for your team. Uh yeah, like passion is a lot more impactful than like previous talent. There could be people who've like coded for years that like will put in less effort at the hackathon, versus like people who haven't had as much experience, just like genuinely trying their best. And like as a teammate, like no matter where you are, like how many hackathons you've gone to, like if you see that, then like that already like proves someone's character.
Yeah, I definitely think that my very first in-person hackathon was actually Hackathon of 2022. I actually was one of the people that came in without a team, and I didn't know anybody there. And I think I ended up teaming up with I think it was three second-year students. Two were from Waterloo, and one was from McGill. And it was actually they looked at me, and I was still in grade 12, right? I was a high school student. At that rate, everyone probably would have been like, "Oh, go with a different university student. Like, why would you pick this random kid in high school?" But it's like, I think just like I had like some passion, there's a fire burning in my eyes, and I truly wanted to make something awesome. And I'm really glad that they saw beyond that, right? I'm really glad that, they saw beyond the resume, and beyond the experience, because I definitely think it was an awesome opportunity and definitely really opened my eyes up to tech. So I think if you get that awesome teammates that really A, make you love hackathons, but B, really make you love exactly, what you're doing and make you love the project, then those are probably some of the best teammates you can ask for. William, do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I think Bill, Rhea, and Audrey covered most of it about like team formation. One thing I want to highlight is that if you're going into Hack North or any hackathon without a team, that is perfectly fine. I've done a ton of hackathons solo. I've won a third of my hackathons solo. I think I see a lot of people who are afraid of doing a hackathon solo because they don't have a team, and as a result they don't end up going to a hackathon, or they go there and like end up not submitting or like just dropping out. I feel like that is such a shame, because like completing a project, it's not that hard, and a lot of the times there's a lot of advantages to having a smaller team, or if you end up doing it yourself, if you couldn't find any other teammates, you have like complete control over where you want to take your product. You have like complete autonomy when you want to work, when you don't want to work. So if you're going to Acting North without teammates, that is perfectly fine. Maybe you will find some teammates. And even if you don't, do not be afraid. Like solo hacking, it might be a bit intimidating at first, but it can still be a wonderful, wonderful experience, and you can still win.
Definitely some wise words, and definitely just proves to say that sometimes even like the idea is important, but at the heart, it's the people that you're working with for the next 36 hours. So find a good group of people, and you're definitely bound to have an awesome experience. I think we're gonna go to kind of the last question we have in chat before we wrap up today. And the question is, it's not about time management. So we really talked about all the things you can do. Now let's talk about how you can do them. So the just a small rephrasing of the question is, what can I do to better manage my time while ensuring that I get enough sleep and also working on the hack, just making sure you have enough time for everything. And how can you basically balance having fun at the event while still being productive?
I think I want to go first on this one because as I still feel like a semi-beginner with hackathons, even though I've gone to enough to have some experience. From a beginner standpoint, I did not really have a lot of organization. In fact, I still don't have a whole lot of structure with how we get things done. As much as we structured a lot like a real product that we're trying to build or a real app. So like, MVP, our P0s, our P1s, trying to get down the basic features first, adding on stretch features if we have time. But then also health wise is, taking breaks, making sure you get sleep. But I do want to say like it's very hard to balance all of that for every hackathon, especially in 24-hour spans. So I would argue like even if you don't balance it that well, it's honestly not terrible. It's not the end of the world. Um, you're never going to be perfect at organizing your entire day and your entire hackathon. Otherwise, it simply wouldn't be that competitive, in my opinion. So structuring it, just making sure that you have like a good amount of getting work done, but also health, paying attention to your own body and your needs and taking breaks. As long as you got those two down to some extent, that's what matters most. But to be honest, like don't worry about having perfect structure. I don't think anyone has perfect structure.
Yeah, definitely think you have to have work-life balance. You also need hackathon life balance, right? You still gotta sleep, right? Otherwise, you're not gonna make that pitch. All right, who's next? How do you make sure you can do all of the fun things at a hackathon?
Let crazy people drag you to crazy stuff. Um, okay, karaoke. Just if people are like asking you to hang out, um, don't just like sit there and say I have to work on my project. Uh, just honestly go for it. Just try it out. Yeah.
Nice. William and Bill?
I can go. So one thing I realized is that a lot of unnecessary work gets done at hackathons. What I mean by this is like you might work on something and then realize you don't need it or realize the approach is wrong and then you just end up wasting a lot of time. So one thing I find really, really helpful, once again, like reach out to the mentors there, like a chat with them for 5 minutes can save you hours of headache down the line, hours of unnecessary work. You know, they have experience in the field and they can tell you like this approach will work, this won't. Like, please leverage them. They can save you so much time. And other than that, like the amount of also like reducing the scope of what your project to be. You got to be reasonable because you have 24 hours, 12 of those hours, it's probably going to be debugging. And then you have to like even, you have workshops, you got to get food, you have like all of these events. So choose something that is like simple. You should be focusing on the idea and what's a minimal viable demo that you can give and then working off of that first. So leverage the mentor so that you're not wasting unnecessary time on costly mistakes and also, you know, focus on the minimum possible products for you to pitch.
Nice, yeah, definitely. I think not even like 12 hours, sometimes depending on the complexity of hours, it can be even like 18 hours debugging, right? So once you have that MVP, really make sure it works because debugging it can be a lot tougher than you think.
For me, regarding like getting everything done, like using the time you have, there's mostly two things. Yeah, two things. The first thing is what I mentioned earlier, correctly using the like dev tools that's available to you to speed up debugging, to speed up your, your actual like code writing. Obviously don't just use AI to write all your code, but using AI to help you write your code, help to debug. You see massive differences between people who like use AI to help debug their code versus people who just debug like manually, like just like 90% speed ups, right? And that's where you get the extra time from. And number two is like the mindset that you don't need all your features to be ready for the pitch. Like for example, you can have an MVP and like 5, 10 additional features. But honestly, as long as you can get the MVP finished, and then as long as you can like pitch well, like hey, we're gonna do like this extra stuff, and say how are you gonna do the extra stuff, most of the time, that'll be enough to win you. Like there's been some hackathons where I've won without like even a working product. I just had like a pitch and I was like, hey, this is what we're gonna planning to do. And like as long as your pitch is relatable, as long as your pitch is understandable, that is and you have like some work, like it could be not working, but as long as you have some work, that's enough to help you win. So you don't have to have the mindset of, oh, if I don't finish this, I won't win. Like having that mindset of being able to go out and have fun is also very important as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's about, as we've talked about today, I think in great lengths. There's the pitch part of your product where you show, the how it relates to what you're doing, why you're doing this thing. But then there's also the other part where, you definitely do have to have some component of it working. But if it's at the end of the day, if it's not 100%, like, right, it's a hackathon, right? Things happen. And maybe instead of trying to figure out like 18 hours, why this one thing isn't working, definitely having some fun along the way can be a good thing as well. And I think that, especially for me, like one of my favorite memories was, I think it was also at Hack the North. We wrote like a huge board at like 2 a.m. We were building like a gesture control drone. And we made like a huge board at 2 a.m. of like all the things we wanted to do on the last day. And then I think we got like one of them done in the next 6 hours. But I definitely do think it's like the one thing that we did do was the thing that we were really prioritizing and definitely making sure like, hey, what's important to you? Let's get that done. And the rest is water under the bridge. So I think that all these questions are awesome. And I think that that's kind of what's going to help hackers. When you're going there next, you can definitely take some of this advice. Before we go, we do have one final question. We're going to do this a little more like a lightning round question, just with slightly shorter responses due to the nature of the question. But if there was one piece of advice that you could leave hackers here today with, to take their hackathon experience to the next level and, just to kind of absorb everything that you have given them, if there could be only one piece of advice that they could take away, what would that golden piece of advice be? I definitely do think this is a deep question, but sure, Bill, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is actually from, okay, I don't know where it's from, but it's a quote. If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it actually make a sound? right? And I relate this to hackathon projects, which is if you made a hackathon project, we didn't tell anyone, did you actually make a hackathon project? No one knows about this hackathon project, and it only benefits like your learning skills. So my biggest piece of advice is to tell this hackathon project everywhere. Tell it to your friends and family. Tell it to like strangers on the internet. Make a LinkedIn post. Make like an Instagram reel, right? The more people that know about your project, the more benefits you gain from it. So for example, I've gained 2 internships from my hackathon project. I gained a full-time job from internship from my hackathon project. I've gotten 4 verbal job offers from hackathon projects, and these all came from me like showing the world, hey, I built this, and this is what I've done, and this is like the impact it has on the world, right? And then that's basically like my biggest piece of advice is to tell everyone, like your family, your friends, your dog, your whatever. Tell everyone what you made.
Yeah, I definitely think like, the hackathon goes beyond the hackathon, right? Like a part of it stays with you, and that part of it is what you build. It's the part that you can show other people and be super duper proud of. So yeah, definitely hackathons do carry on beyond just the 36 hours. All right, everyone else, what is your golden piece of advice?
So, bit of a hot take, but if you guys take nothing else from this event, I really think that you guys should take the why, how, what structure. When demoing, I could be really easy to get carried away, but there really is a good structure to doing it. Never start with what you're building, always start with why we need it, why this is solving the problem. If you can start with why and like hit them right in the feels with it within the first 5 seconds, just get that hook. That usually keeps them pretty much good. You pretty much win that round, to some extent. So why, how, what? Make sure you hit the why first.
All right, why, how, what? We'll be definitely using that in the future. Audrey, do you have something you'd like to share?
Don't go into the hackathon believing you're gonna lose. Don't go into the hackathon believing you're gonna fail. Go into the hackathon believing that you're gonna fulfill your vision and that you're gonna do the absolute best and your project's gonna come out full. Just believe that the best outcome will happen.
Yeah,
Don't get wrapped in your head.
yeah, definitely confidence, right? It shows off not only in how you're building, but it's the good attitude. It's the thing that carries you all the way through all those late night hours. But it's also the way you pitch it, right? When you truly love a project and when you're truly confident, the judges will see that. Definitely a big thing. And William, last golden piece of advice we have for today. What do you have for us?
The most important thing is you gotta have fun at hackathons. It doesn't matter what you build, it doesn't matter if you do well. What you need to do is enjoy the process so that you can keep going back and you have the persistence. A lot of people ask me like, how the heck did I, go to 100 hackathons, win 55 of them? It ultimately comes down to the compounding rule. If you don't enjoy the process, if you don't enjoy the hackathons, you're not gonna grow, you're not gonna learn. By having fun and constantly going to these events and growing every single time and having that exponential growth, that is what will allow you to not only learn a crap ton, but also meet these amazing people, create all of these amazing opportunities. But you gotta have fun and you gotta enjoy the process. So doesn't matter what happens, enjoy Hackton North, do whatever you want to do, and then enjoy the process and go to your next hackathon.
Yeah, definitely a really strong piece of advice to end off here. And yeah, definitely. I mean, hackathons, as we've learned today, are more than just, an event to build your project. They're a way to meet new people. They're a way to potentially, find your next step in your career. They're a way to grow as a person beyond just your technical skills and your technical skills too, right? And I think that's why for a lot of people in this room, you keep on going back and back to them, right? Like you truly see value, and it's truly more about like everything it brings, not just one part, not just the project, but truly the combination of things and the ways you can grow by just attending a hackathon. And on that note, definitely would like to thank all our panelists here today for making it, making the time, definitely sharing all of your advice. I definitely think it's valuable to kind of know all about why hackathons are so awesome, so you can definitely make the most of them. And yeah, thank you to everyone who also chimed in the chat. Thank you to everyone who sent in those awesome questions. I definitely think we got a lot of hot takes from that one too. I think there was a couple of them that were a little bit, had a lot of diverse opinions. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone. We love everyone here. We will see you next weekend at Hackton North, September 13th to 15th at the University of Waterloo. And thanks for everyone for chiming in. Hope you all have a great rest of your evening. Bye.